In this episode of DataBarracks, I will tell you how you can prepare for the DP900 Azure Data Fundamentals exam. My name is Scott Andrews from DataBarracks, and I successfully completed the Microsoft Azure Data Fundamentals exam back when it was still in beta. This is a high-level exam that does not require in-depth technical knowledge, but it does cover a lot of ground. This exam will test your knowledge generally on data solutions, and specifically on how you can use Azure to provide those solutions. You need to have a solid grounding in fundamental data concepts. You also need to know when to use what Azure solutions for your data projects. Generally, you will need to know the three major categories of data. Structured data typically refers to data in a traditional relational database system. Semi-structured data refers to data formats such as XML or JSON that provide a more flexible data structure. Unstructured data refers to the wide world of everything else, from videos, photos, text, without a defined data schema. You need to know the main differences between data system types, specifically those between transactional systems and reporting or analytics-based type systems. You should know that transactional systems are typically normalized and optimized for data insertion, whereas data warehouse systems are typically denormalized and optimized for data reporting. You should know the difference between data processing methods, batch processing versus streaming data. Batch is the more traditional data warehouse load method of periodic scheduled loading events, and streaming data is the more modern variation that includes real-time or near real-time data. You should have basic knowledge about the Azure database options. The traditional relational database or relational database management system, and the more modern NoSQL options that include Cosmos DB, which is a multi-model database service. API options for Cosmos DB include Cassandra for a column family database, MongoDB for a document database, Gremlin for a graph database, and Table for a database of key value pairs. You should have basic knowledge about structured query language, which is the standard language to query relational database systems. DDL, or Data Definition Language, defines database objects such as tables and views, and DML, or Data Modification Language, allows you to interact with your data with select, insert, update, or delete statements. You should know about the non-database storage options in Azure, which include table, blob, and file storage. You should know the similarities and differences between block blobs, append blobs, and page blobs. You should be familiar with analytical concepts such as visualizations, business intelligence reporting, extract, transform, load, and extract, load, transform, and the techniques of analytical reporting, which include descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and cognitive analytics. You should be able to define general concepts such as a data warehouse, a data lake, and big data, and also know the Azure services that provide these solutions. You should be familiar with the Microsoft Analytical Tool Suite, which includes SQL Server, Power BI, and paginated reports. You should know what these tools are and what they are used for. You should also be familiar with the Azure Data Integration tools, which include Data Factory, Databricks, Synapse Analytics, and SQL Server Integration Services. You should be able to define data pipelines and activities and be able to describe common practices for data integration. Finally, as this is Azure, you should know how to provision Azure services at a high level, Know your way around the Azure portal, PowerShell, and command line interface. Know your options for security, connectivity, and Azure Resource Manager templates. You should also know the features and differences between Azure Cloud and on-prem solutions. There are some great resources from Microsoft, and I will leave links to these in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by. Please like or subscribe to hear more from Dataverix.